Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, March 3rd. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 24 hours, we have seen no precipitation across the Great Basin with warmer temperatures. However, over the last 7 days, the image on the left shows drier conditions over the western side of the basin and still near to above normal precipitation over the last week over the eastern side of the Great Basin. However, over the last 30 days, the image on the right shows that still over the northern half of the Great Basin, all areas are at least near or above normal, with the areas most above normal being the Sierra into western Nevada and parts of Idaho, Wyoming, and northern Utah. We still have seen some drier conditions over parts of the southern areas of the Great Basin over the last 30 days. We have seen drier and warmer conditions recently across the Great Basin, but that will once again be changing as we move through the weekend into early next week. We have some clouds moving in over the northern half of the Great Basin in advance of this storm system off the coast, so we will see increasing clouds over the next 24 hours, as well as winds increasing from west to east, and eventually precipitation moving across most areas of the Great Basin over the next few days, with the exception of the far south. Now looking at the ventilation index today, and you can see generally with a ridge of high pressure in place and lighter wind flow, we have poor dispersion in most areas of the Great Basin, with slightly higher areas of dispersion over parts of southern Nevada and southern Utah. If we now look at the transport winds and mixing height, we can see the reason for this, and the winds are relatively light. There are some periods of moderate winds over parts of eastern and central Nevada into southwest Utah and over parts of Idaho. However, for the most part, winds are in the light to moderate range. Also, mixing heights are on the low side with the exception of areas over southern Nevada and southern Utah that are a little bit higher, again accounting for that slightly better dispersion. As we move into Saturday, this storm system off the coast starts to move east, and this will push wind and precipitation to northern areas of the Great Basin. And in that case, with the winds increasing, we will see dispersion increase significantly over much of Nevada and the southern half of Utah. Still, in areas where there's cloud cover and somewhat lighter winds over parts of Wyoming, far northern Utah, and southeast Idaho, we will continue to see poor dispersion for another day. Looking at the transport winds, and you can see the significant increase in winds across really the southern and western areas of the Great Basin, along with increasing mixing heights. If we look into Sunday, the system moves further east and centralizes over the Great Basin. This will spread precipitation across most areas. The only areas that may see very little or no precipitation would be far southern Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and southern and southeast Utah. Ventilation indices will improve in all areas, again as the system moves east and we see more precipitation and stronger winds. On Sunday, the strongest winds you can see from the map on the left is over the eastern half of Nevada into Utah, and many areas of eastern Nevada and western Utah could see wind gusts above 50 miles per hour. So these will be very strong winds, and conditions have been on the drier side in some of these areas. Also, mixing heights will be quite good over the eastern half of the Great Basin. If we now look at the clearing index for Utah, forecast for the next 3 days, as you've already seen in the ventilation indices and the winds, as they increase over the next few days, the clearing index will remain quite low to moderate today, however will be increasing significantly as we go through Saturday and Sunday. Over the next 3 days, the total amount of precipitation, which will mostly move in later in the day on Saturday and move through Sunday and Monday, will be heaviest in the Sierra, where we could see over 3 or up towards 4 inches of total precipitation. And this system will also be bringing much colder temperatures, so we will see those snow levels dropping to valley floors across much of the northern half of the Great Basin, especially later this weekend. So we could see a few feet of new snow in the higher Sierra, and also several inches in the lower elevations, or even higher amounts as we go across the northern half of the Great Basin over the next few days. Now looking towards early next week, the storm system is still moving across the Great Basin, with yet another feature moving into the Pacific Northwest, so we will see scattered amounts of precipitation through the day on Monday, with the heaviest precipitation over the eastern half of the Great Basin. Also, winds will still be in the moderate range, therefore we'll see fairly good ventilation across most of the Great Basin. As we go into Tuesday and the system exits, we still have some sort of onshore flow and a weaker system moving through, which will keep some precipitation over the northern half of the Great Basin, and ventilation index will still remain quite high over the northern half of the area, however will be deteriorating as you move further south. As we move into Wednesday, we see some lighter winds, especially over the southern and eastern areas of the Great Basin, so ventilation indices will be declining with poor dispersion across really the northern 2/3 of the area, and still some cloud cover and light showers to deal with. By Thursday, drier conditions move across the southern 2/3 of the Great Basin, with the main focus for precipitation remaining north over Idaho. Also, with lighter winds and ridging of high pressure building in from the south, we will see poor dispersion really in all areas. If we look at the precipitation on days 4 and 5, and this takes us from Monday morning through Wednesday morning, and you can see the bulk of that precipitation does move through during the weekend. However, even from early to mid next week, we will see some additional amounts of precipitation, mainly over the northern third of the area. If we look a little bit further ahead towards the middle of March, we have the better chance for above normal temperatures over the southern half of the area, along with dry conditions, and below normal temperatures and above normal precipitation in the north. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.